Welcome back. Today we're talking about not networking and how to not network in order to get to know colleagues in your industry. Quote, "You know a lot of people. You're a good networker," a friend said to me recently. Now, this surprised me because I suck at networking and I avoid networking events. And this same friend has repeated this to me a few times every time I've seen her because she'll bump into people who happen to know me, and this is all within fitness. And I thought about that for a while because when I worked in other industries, I hated networking events. Even when I was a jewelry designer, I would try to go to a networking event thinking, oh, I'm a business owner, I own stores. I will come here to this event, hand out my cards, people will come to my store. And yet it never worked out that way. I never got a business card that became this valuable connection, and maybe it's because I didn't buy into it, because networking events feel very forced, and it feels, or to me, it feels like we're all there to try to get each other to help our own businesses. And I've heard other business coaches and people who are known say that they don't network, they develop relationships, which just sounds like, okay, yeah, easier said than done. But I wanted to share my experience in case it can help you redefine the way you see what networking is. So, since working as a trainer, I've attended so many colleagues' classes for the past 8 years. And originally, it was a way to get a workout in if I had been working all morning training clients. Because after waking up early to meet a 6 a.m. client, and then a 7 a.m., and then an 8 a.m., you're really tired, because helping other people in training is actually talking to them, keeping them engaged, and it takes a lot of uh, personal energy. So after something like that, the last thing I would want to do after trying to motivate other people and watching other people work out was to go and work out on my own. At that time, you just want to be out of the gym because you've been there for 3 or 4 hours or more. So I would use ClassPass. And back then, 8 years ago, ClassPass was a new app. I think back then it was 99 bucks a month, unlimited. You could go to as many classes, as many studios as you want. It wasn't like the system they have now with credits. So I would take advantage of ClassPass. So I'd be in a neighborhood. I'd see I was done training my last client, like, okay, what's around me? What gyms are around here that I could pop into that also has a class coming up soon? And that's how I ended up discovering a lot of different gyms and a lot of different instructors, AKA colleagues. And what at first was just to move my body after working and trying to get my own workout in, it turned into something different that I hadn't expected. I started discovering what kind of classes I enjoyed, which someone who doesn't work in fitness would also notice or remark on. But I have a different lens because I work in the business. So when I go into a gym, I'm looking at what the vibe is, which you would too if you don't work in fitness. But as the instructor is guiding the class, I'm listening to how they present the information and how they engage with everyone. So if you don't work in fitness, you might just notice you like certain instructors more than others. You might not be able to articulate why you like this person more than that person. It could be like, oh, Yusef does a lot of explanations, or he gives me good cues for how to move my body when I'm in this treadmill class. Or um, Leslie knows how to notice who needs help. So stuff like that, who knows. But working in the industry, I notice a lot because I'm doing the same thing. So I would end up having my favorite type of classes that I would go to. So my favorite type of gyms where I thought, this is where a non-fitness person wouldn't notice. I would think about how the programming was, if it was thoughtful programming. So the workout, did it cover, was it very well-rounded? Was it too biased to one thing? And of course, there's going to be tendencies, like I prefer strength over a hit. So someone who likes more of a cardio-based class might like certain studios better. But I'm digressing. So in this process of going to different gyms, it allowed me to get to know a lot of instructors over the 8 years. So if someone was newer working at a smaller gym, think about it, 8 years later, we're both, more seasoned in the industry. So because I went to so many different gyms and took so many different classes, now here I'm 10 years later or 10 plus years later into being a trainer or coach. I do happen to know a lot of people, and it wasn't through purposefully networking, like going to some, they have industry events where they're like, oh, network with your peers. I think true networking or truly developing things has to be super natural, as in very natural, not forced. And here's an example of going to classes and then knowing someone as they also develop in their career. So as I mentioned, his name, Yusef Jeffers, used to be, actually he still is, a running coach at Mile High, which in New York City is a treadmill running only class. They do intervals, hill sprints, that kind of thing. Yusuf was one of my favorite instructors. He also worked at this place called Tone House, where one of my also trainer friends worked. So I knew him from like 8 years ago. And now Yusuf is the director of one of the directors of High Rocks, I think director of events. So he's pretty high level up there. And so if someone was to say, oh, do you know Tina? He would, because I would always take his classes. So in going to classes, and it allowed me to get to know people, but that's not what I'm trying to say to you. There's more to it than just that. It wasn't just because I took the classes. So this is the key tip. Anytime I take a class, even now, I smile. I walk in, I smile, and I don't necessarily go, "Hi, I'm Coach Tina, blah blah blah," but I'm smiling, I'm enjoying the class, I'm joking around, I'll pipe up during the class so that the instructor also has a good time. And afterwards, I will often want to take a picture with them to post on my social and to shout them out about what a great it was. So I'm not ever consciously thinking about networking. I have a genuine interest in meeting my colleagues that work in the industry, taking classes and learning from them in the way they cue clients, the way they cue class members, and I share that with other people like, oh, Yusef is so great, such a great running coach. You can find him here at Mile High. And so I always hop on my socials to shout them out. And I've taken classes at this place that I actually love, the Training Lab, which is they do strength and conditioning. And then I've gone to something like a city challenge and bumped into a group of their trainers and members competing in the city challenge. So when I went with my group of friends, they're like, they're like, Tina, how do you know all these people? I'm like, oh, because I've taken classes there. So something like fitness is going to be very social, and, they remember. So I wanted to share for you key networking things that's not networking. One, you go into any space, you got to walk in and smile. You're memorable if you're friendly. It's Everyone's got social anxiety. Even though you say like, "Oh, I do," that person's so outgoing. I'm I think pretty outgoing, even though I'm an introvert, but I will smile. I will always smile, even if during the workout, and it makes other people feel more disarmed and welcomed. So that's number one. Number two is I always am very generous with my shout outs. I'm always acknowledging someone's talents, a gym that I love. Um, and it's not so that they will do it for me, because they might not do it for me, but in giving out the good vibes, it creates a nice memory of you to that person. But that's also not why. I mean, I genuinely like to shout out because I feel like people, when they do are really great at someone, everyone else should know about it. And the third thing, because now that my schedule is different, I still will go into the city, go out of my way on a Saturday to take a colleague's class. And it is 100% because I enjoy being in these fitness classes, but I want to experience this colleague's expertise and talents. and it allows me to check out a new place. So for me, it's almost like fitness sightseeing, which I do when I go travel and I'm not with my partner who doesn't want to go to the gyms, but I love checking out new gyms. So the third thing is I prioritize going to colleagues' classes or workshops, both to learn, to professionally develop, because they do the same thing, but they do it in with a different personality or maybe a different structure, and you always pick up something. So I don't know how this would apply to your industry, but supporting people in their class, their courses, their panels, it is showing up for them, and people remember that. An example is it makes me think about one of the previous interviews that I did about developing friendships, and I had interviewed my friend Jeanette and Sima together about how they have such a and wide, s- deep and wide friendship network, and they both had a common element, which was to show up for people. So for Jeanette, if a friend has her daughter's birthday party or 5-year-old birthday party, or like a 40th anniversary of, or they're turning 40 and it's not near the vicinity, she will set aside her time to go. So I'm going to apply that in terms of colleagues in the industry. If you attend someone's workshops, panels, and they know you did, they will remember. It's the same way how when I have my small group class, I remember who comes often. And I know sometimes we're limited by schedule, so not everyone's going to have a schedule where they can go to all those events or those classes. But when you show up, that person who's presenting or teaching remembers and appreciates. So that's my little 2 cents about how I don't network, yet I know a lot of people in the fitness industry, at least in New York City. I've been going to their classes all the time. I'm always very friendly, and I support people by shouting them out. Well, I am looking forward to talking to you next week. Oh, before we go, just a reminder, could you remember to leave a rating for me, whether it's on Apple or Spotify? Maybe even comment if you like this topic or if there's a specific topic that you want me to touch upon, because I've had a very, very, very lived life, 3 different industries. I've been divorced. I have so many things, personal things I could cover. If that giving you insight on that would help you. And oh yeah, and one last thing. I in July am opening up an introduction to plyometrics for grown folks over 45. I only have 5 available spots because it's a very one-on-one thing, because with everybody coming from a different fitness background, a different fitness history, like you might have played sports in high school, a team sports, but then you haven't done anything for a couple of years, for 10 or 15 years yet. You'll still have more fitness knowledge than someone who's never played a team sport. So I'm running an introduction to plyometrics 8-week personalized program, and I have a wait list for when I open it up, and I'll be contacting everyone. So I'll plop that in the show notes, and I will talk to you next week. I'm Coach Tina. For more information about how to work with me, head to ironstrongfitness.com and send me a message. I'll see you next time.